So let's get into it. What's going on? Well, Trump world seems to be having a moment, you know, and there's a lot really to unpack, and I'm not really quite sure what to make of it. I do know the taco is absolutely going strong. I The only thing that's really keeping him from all out um just collapse seems to be just the corporate media doing everything they possibly can to basically normalize him and keep him afloat, you know, which is just kind of crazy to me. But they've been doing that for years, so um that's nothing new. Um but he's been tacoing all over the place. A lot of it with horrible consequences, you know. I really wish we could I think it's going to come to a point where Nick P asked, can we sue them into oblivion? Um we're I've got an article queued up I really need to finish up. I really think that Fox News at this point should just be nationalized and broken up and sold. That they're a existential threat to American democracy at this point and should be treated as such. Um, they basically just put forth uh, Russian propaganda, which is essentially what the Republican Party is right now. Um, I think like legal like the kind of legal redress that we're going to need in the next era moving forward is going to be whatever the next step is from right now. Because the Supreme Court has basically shown that they're all in on fascism. Uh, so, yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that we haven't really considered yet that we're going to have to consider, and, it's going to be more than just like, oh, we got to bring back the fairness doctrine. It's like, oh, we gotta bring back this and this is like, no, we need to nationalize them and break them apart, take over the company, liquidate the assets and give the money back to the American people, and literally jail like the Murdoch family. I mean, it has like for treason. It just has to come to that. It won't, unfortunately. I'm gonna sound like a crazy person and a radical, but that's kind of how you're gonna have to fix this. The status quo right now is showing absolutely no interest in taking this seriously. They're going to come around to it because eventually Trump and his madness is going to touch all of them. So, but if Mamdani in New York is any indication, then no, these the elites are not really ready to deal with the problems that we're having right now. And it's just not happening. So, but you know, the silver lining in all this is there's absolutely no denying who they are at this point, and they're going to become extremely unpopular. The problem is we're going to endure a lot of pain to get to that point. And I'm not talking about just like concentration camps. Um, like I think the big problem that like is when the supply chains break down, and if they're going to be able to rectify that. It depends on how much they're able to do with that. I have no idea of like what that entails because the scope of the problems that we're going to have is going to be pretty big. I mean, they're already big. They were big before Trump got into this. So, um, yeah. But I promised taco, and I would not be a good host if I didn't deliver taco. So, um, but what has Trump done? Like, well, one, he absolutely the big taco has been his phone call with Putin. Putin basically just showed the world that Trump is his boy, like 100%. And even backing Russia, he's kind of a punk. Because today in the cabinet meeting, when asked, I think Caitlin Collins asked him of CNN, asked him, who gave the order to stop the missiles, so the missile defenses to Ukraine. So for those of you are not following this, we had a shipment of missiles that were slated to go to Ukraine. And these would have absolutely defended Kyiv and other civilian centers from these Russian missile and drone attacks. And that's really, like, to put this in perspective, because you've seen probably a lot of Operation Spiderweb, which was massive, a massive hit. And you also have, they have taken out military targets. So inside Russia, right? They've taken out munitions plants and, legitimate military targets. Yeah, that's right, Kelly. That we were sending them over, like drones. Ukraine has their own drones, but like the drones that we were going to send are sort of the bigger ones. Ukraine has the smaller ones. Basically, we're sending them our hand-me-down equipment, but the missiles were they were the ones for defense that they needed to counteract the Russian missiles that were impacting the city. So, like, when you saw basically after Putin got off the phone and then they bombed Kyiv, that's what those missiles were slated to do. God knows what Trump said on that phone call. I'm sure it was just, I have no idea what he would have said. It was probably something that'll embarrass Americans when it comes out. But hey, hello, hello, Substack from Soso. Well, hello back. And so, but yeah, so the difference is Ukraine attacks legitimate military targets. Putin attacks civilian targets in an effort to create the most terror he can of the populace. That seems to be sort of the Russian strategy, is to create as much terror as possible to try to get Ukraine to basically submit to Russian aggression. That's in a lot of ways a desperate act, because the Russian military is falling apart. They're losing men and materiel faster than they can replace it. They've had over 1 million casualties, and they were having problems refitting the tanks, so their tanks got wiped out. And if you're going to take and hold ground, like if you're going to punch through defenses and in a theater of war, you're going to need heavy armor, right? You're going to need tanks and supportive infantry. You don't have it, even forget it. It's pretty much how you have to, like, if you're taking it on the ground. And now they're running out of aircraft. Operation Spiderweb seems to have, like, really hit them harder than even initial reports said. And so Ukraine is really putting them in the hurt locker, at least in terms of logistics. So Putin's last gasp is trying to basically cow the populace into submission, which for Ukraine, they're 3 years into the war. That's not happening, So, and Zelensky's attacks, or Ukraine's attacks in Russia, seem to be having the effect where it's now coming home to them, the Russian people, which Putin was like, "Oh, it'll never happen here," but well, here it is. But the main thing, and the reason it's a taco, is One, before that phone call, Trump quietly rolled back sanctions on Russian banks, which basically threw them a lifeline that kept the Russian economy from pretty much collapsing. Had he ramped up the sanctions, that might have ended the war. For those of you who haven't really followed this really closely, the two guys who are most responsible for that war continuing are Elon Musk and Donald Trump. So really, with Elon Musk, is there was a point in the conflict where Ukraine was going to deploy their drones, and they were going to use, because they use Starlink, and they were going to employ the drones and attack the Black Sea Fleet. And Elon Musk decided, oh no, we couldn't have that. So he shut Starlink down for Ukraine. And so they couldn't take out the Russian fleet on the Black Sea. And that would have crippled them probably a year into the war militarily. And, Elon said, oh, I'm doing that to facilitate peace. It's like, no, you're not. 100%. Had they crippled that fleet, the war probably would have been over. It would have been over already. And then Trump getting elected basically gave them breathing room that, so yeah. But yeah, Putin basically showed the world that Donald Trump is his guy, and Donald Trump hasn't done anything to counteract that, or contradict it. It's just, it's like, oh, we're going to make musicals and movies together. That's what Putin said. Like, and Trump's been mum on it, so, yeah. And that's the thing that has to be some of the big, like anything dealing with Putin with Trump has to be some of the biggest weak sauce I've ever seen. And that, as soon as Putin made it a point to talk to him on the phone and then start bombing Kyiv as soon as he hung up. It's a signal to NATO and the EU that I own Trump. The United States is not coming. That's what that was. That's exactly what that was. And so then the missiles got halted, presumably by Pete Hegseth. I'm guessing at the direction of somebody, to help the Russians, because that's absolutely what Trump wants to do. And, when he was asked about it from Caitlin Collins today in CNN, he said, oh, I don't know who did that. I'm not sure who gave that order. Just think about that if that had been, just think about that if a Democratic president said that. The wall-to-wall calls for impeachment would be just, we wouldn't stop hearing them as soon as that press conference ended. So it was a cabinet meeting when he said that, in a live cabinet meeting, because, Trump likes to do everything, he has to broadcast everything to the world, and that's how he gets played. Bibi played him at a live dinner, I guess for hosting with Israel. And that's when, he said, like Bibi, Netanyahu said to him, I'm nominating you for the Nobel Peace Prize for what you did in Iran. I don't know how bombing another sovereign country gets you a peace prize, but okay, sure. But that's the thing. Bibi said that because he knows he can play Trump that way, because Trump has crowed about the Nobel Peace Prize because Obama got one and he didn't, and, Trump is that's what got Trump into politics was Obama. Because Trump decided he was going to do the birther thing with the long form long form birth certificate, blah blah blah, and he jumped on that to get noticed, and then the day that he wanted to um do that, it's like, okay, you know, like, sorry, I gotta respond to something real quick. I'm getting interruptions, and yeah. And so I think that was like, he was like, I'm going to release this information about Obama not having a long form birth certificate. And literally the day he was going to release it, Obama gave a press conference and held up his long form birth certificate, um, which was hysterical. Uh, you know, but, and then he got roasted at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, you know. And that's how we got Donald Trump, because he's such a man of, he's so thin skinned, now his thin skin and narcissism, malignant narcissism, it's all our problems, the entire world's problems. It's great. So, um, yeah. The Jeffrey Epstein stuff has honestly been a surprise to me. Um, I like, I, I think it's, this is the fascinating thing about that stuff, because conspiracy theory stuff is like, it's a religion. You have to look at conspiracy theories like religious fervor. Um, so yeah, I mean, we'll jump into that. Like, that's kind of a fun thing. So really how a lot of these conspiracy theories started is they honestly used to be Soviet propaganda, right? Um, they wanted to create distrust in the American government. And so they started spreading a lot of this misinformation, like, fluoride in the water, all this crazy stuff. Like, and that's why this, like, it's that the Russians have been so damn good at it for a long time. The problem back then in the pre-internet days is the best you could do was under some publishing, like rag publishing. Maybe it's in like some tucked away corner of a newsstand. And so it's a book that somebody buys off chance or whatever. And so you're not making much headway with that. But it wasn't until social media, and you have social media where they can spread this out to a mass audience. And then the other thing too was, people starting to, um some people also point to the decline in church membership on the Protestant right wing side, right? So you're losing sort of this church membership, like, religious, like on the religious right, the Protestant side of the fence, because Roman Catholics, Islam, sort of not the, which, for lack of a better word, mainstream American religion, has stayed pretty consistent for the last 30 years. It fluctuates like 2 to 3 points. But American Protestantism, because it embraced right wing conservative politics, starting with in the late 70s with Nixon somewhat, and then really jumping into with Reagan, with the moral majority. It's not because it's not separate from politics. It's turned off people who were not, increasingly more and more right wing, and that's why you've seen the decline of Protestant Christianity. But the thing is, the people that have sort of left that still have this place they want to put this impetus for religious fervor, and that's where conspiracy theories come in. right? So you have those two things. You have Russian propaganda. Cambridge Analytica used that to great effect in the 2016 election. And you have this absence of a church or sort of religiosity, which that's exactly what conspiracy theories are. It's not, that's why it's so hard to talk to people that buy into this stuff. It's a religious fervor. It's not based on logic and evidence. It's based on feelings, how they feel. And feelings are very, very irrational, right? Um, so that what's interesting to me with the Epstein files and where this goes is, and again, I want to stress this, it's not about like logic and reason. Because the next thing I say, which is, right, um, these people honestly didn't believe that Trump was in the Epstein files. They thought it was Democratic politicians. It was Hollywood celebrities. Probably some of them are in there, right? They literally thought it was like Tom Hanks and his wife, or they thought Hunter Biden was in him, or, you know, like Democratic politicians, and that's why they're protecting him. You know, they thought Trump was being framed, and that, the QAnon thing is all, he's the storm. He's going to come in and pull down the curtain and get rid of all the corruption. Look, it sounds freaking insane when you literally just look at a little bit of factual evidence. That is absolutely not true, right? There's hundreds of pictures with Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein has talked about their friendship in interviews, right? And like Ghislaine Maxwell got the sex trafficking victims from Mar-a-Lago. So what's fascinating to me about the this Epstein stuff, right? The three biggest people that trafficked in this crap for 4 years were Pam Bondi, our current Attorney General, Dan Bongino, and Kash Patel. That's why they were put in those positions by Trump, because the right's like, we're finally going to get the Epstein files. Hell yeah. And then, of course, when they released the files and they held up the big binder, that was all just stuff that was already made public. It wasn't anything new. So the people were like, oh, yeah. And sorry again. Technical difficulties. And so, like, sorry, lost my train of thought. But like, there, I literally thought that they would absolutely just spin this or whatever. But to come out and say, no, there's no client list. That is, because you got to remember, these people that are looking for it for 4 years, this is religious fervor. This is what the like dear leader promised them that it was going to be. They were going to get the Epstein client list. They were going to get all the corrupt Democrats. They were going to get all the corrupt people. It's all there. This is the holy grail, so to speak, right? And it's not, you know, and you have Pam Bondi, the AG, who said that I have the client list on my desk. Direct quote. And I know that because I heard her say it, but also when Caroline Levitt tried to spin it, right? To Steve or it's not Steve Ducey, but his son Ducey, who's in the press pool, you know, she said, "Oh well, no, Pam Bondi never said that." He's like, "Actually, I got the direct quote right here." I was like, "Ooh, Fox News is calling him to the carpet on this." Right, because their audience wants to see a list. And Trump is saying there is no list. Yeah, no shit, because he's on it. Like, he's all over it. So what that tells me is, like, he's terrified of that getting out. Like, he absolutely does not want it to get out. Yeah, Peter Ducey. Thank you, Vivian Survivor. Yes. Or VV Survivor. Yeah, it was Peter Ducey. Yeah. And I mean, across the right wing media sphere, Alex Jones, all of them, there's meltdowns. Even Roseanne Barr, who's become a lunatic, is had a meltdown. They want to see it. So it's fascinating to me because you're dealing with religious fervor, right? You gotta remember that's what this is. And they're not gonna this notion, like, they're like, I've seen these memes where it's like, the Epstein files, we're gonna release them. Okay. It's like, oh yeah, the Epstein files don't exist. Okay. Now, the people that really, really believe in this stuff, they want it, right? This is, because again, these people, they've lost friends, they've lost business, like, they've gone into religious mania, right? They want that mania validated. And you're telling them essentially, nah, after ginning them up 4 years, nah. Mm-mm. Do you think they're gonna just say, well, okay? Or are they gonna go, oh man, they got to you. The elite cabal got to you. They got to Pam Bondi. They got to Cash Patel. They got to Dan Bongino. Man, the deep state runs deeper than we thought. I think that's where it's going to go, right? This is not something that's just they're going to go, okay, you know. I don't know how they're going to react to the president being a pedophile. Because here's the thing: we essentially live in two separate realities. That's what 24-hour cable news, AM right radio, and social media with algorithms and funneling where they put that is essentially what's happened, especially with decades of the right killing, like public school and that kind of stuff, you know um taking away civics and everything. So you put all that together, right? you know these people really believe in an alternate reality. They really do, right? And you know I think I like, oh, that's Rich. Like, so Rich had a great video, like, where he really broke it down. It's like, um, and I'm kind of borrowing a little bit from him. So basic psychology is when you're confronted with any kind of information, it runs through your fight or flight, basically your amygdala or whatever it is in your brain. So basically where the fight or flight is, it has to run through that first, right? Um, and that's evolutionary. It's just for it's we need that for survival, right? You know, if you're out in the savannah or you're in the wild and there's you know or you're near a river and there's a hippo or there's a crocodile or something like that, and you're kind of seeing the water, you know, uh, bubbles in the water. You don't need to sit there and go, well, and run through the logical part of your brain, right? Your fight or flight needs to kick in and see, is that a threat or am I okay? Do I got to fight? Do I got to run? What do I got to do? Right. And then once it gets through that, then you can start doing the logic and you can start doing all that other stuff, right? Absolutely, Sandra. It's the reptilian part of your brain, you know. And they've done, and conservatives typically use that part of their brain more than so-called liberals. They've done studies on that, right? They're more reactionary, whereas, liberals are not. It's just, and it's not, and some of that has to do with, as there's some evidence to suggest whether it's trauma or whatever, or what you're exposed to. So it's environment, and you tend to go this way. You tend to be more conservative. It's not a guarantee that's what's going to happen, but it tends to be that way. And the other is, uh, basically how you sort of practice, right? And then also it's if you're constantly exposed to fear stimuli, right? And so if that part of your brain is constantly always triggered, right, then, it's almost kind of like a dopamine hit. And when it's not being triggered, you feel its absence. That's essentially what PTSD is, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder and combat veterans. It's the same kind of thing, right? And so that's why when you watch cable media or all this other stuff, you have this where it's designed to make you anxious. All the banners and the lights and then the headlines and even the term breaking news is designed because, if you see that, you're going to go, oh God, what's going on? It's, what's happening? Because if it was just hey, you know, uh, president had a meeting today, yeah, it's okay. Went pretty well. You're not going to get excited about that. But if it's the graphics coming at you and it says breaking news, and you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Your brain's looking at that fight or flight's going what's with all this? And then they come on, they go, well, the president hasn't made any headway in the trade talks with South Korea. You're like, that's breaking news. What the? Come on, dude. Oh. Ow! Lost my camera. Boy, I'm having technical difficulties all over the place tonight. I apologize. Sorry about that, guys. But news media is designed to do that. It's designed to stimulate that part. And especially on the right, especially with Fox and OAN and all that stuff, right? It needs to trigger that over and over. And so it goes back. That's why it almost becomes like this religious mania. It's a mania in a way. And so for the Trump administration to basically come out and say, no, it's not true. Yeah. Because this Trump's power is already waning. He wasn't as strong to begin with coming into this second term. And especially with the dementia, and all this other stuff, he's not the same Trump he was in 2016. Not even close. The energy's not there. The mental acuity's not there. The lies are getting sloppy and lazy. And God knows, I think somebody described the White House as Game of Thrones. And it is. You have a bunch of little, power sectors. Stephen Miller with his private army, and then Russell Voigt with his Project 2025. And, they got, Marco Rubio doing 3 freaking jobs. And it's just a mess. So, I don't. And as things start to break down, as things start to fall apart, and we're starting to see that, because it turns out some of the most important things we do in our budget are Medicaid and Medicare and FEMA and the National Weather Service and NOAA, things that we take for granted. But that's the stuff that you use and every day. It's the stuff that directly impacts your life. If the Defense Department gets another $100 billion to build F-35 or whatever the hell it is now, like more fighter jets or this and that, unless you work in that factory or you work in that supply chain, that really doesn't affect you, right? That's not something that you're gonna be like, well, yeah, it's a good thing that happened. Like, boy, that's gonna make my life much better in a meaningful way. No, but if the rural health clinic closes, oh yeah, that's gonna affect you 100%. Or if the weather forecast is not as accurate, just even on small things, that's gonna affect you. Because even though you look at your phone and you go, hey, look at this Doppler radar, that happens because of weather balloons. So this very high-tech gadget, this thing that you rely on, the Doppler radar, it gets data from Doppler radar and from the DoD that used to supplement it. Doesn't now, thanks to the big beautiful bill and Poag said. So you look at that, it's less accurate because there's less weather offices open and there's less weather balloon launches. So they're not getting like those accurate informations, you know. Well, Sandra said, yeah, but the murder bill doesn't kick in until after the midterm. Some of it doesn't, but it's already having a downline effect. Um, you know, and so, oh, that's okay, Trudy. I was late getting on. So, um, but some of it's already happening. Some like you've had a health clinic in Nebraska close. You're having like, these facilities that were hanging by a thread. They're closing, and God knows, like I've done some preliminary research on Colorado District 4, just kind of running some stuff. That I actually used AI for it because I was cross referencing it with the big beautiful bill and saying like, okay, well, how is this like? I wanted to try to drill down into. I had some help with a friend of mine, a buddy of mine, helped me do it. I was like, what about these individual clinics in like Kiowa and in these smaller rural towns and in Lauren Boebert district? How's it going to affect them? Oof, it's going to be bad. My district is getting ready because I live. Yes, I live in the Denver metro area, but like where I live in Lauren Boebert's district in Castle Rock, like we're right inside of it. You know, like if I go down the road a piece, I'm in a Democratic district. I think I'm in Jason Crow's district, but like I'm right inside Lauren Boebert's district. So big chunk of her district is rural, and it is going to get hammered hard by the big beautiful bill. It is going to get hammered. Just looking at what's in there and what's about to drop, Pueblo is going to get hammered. And Pueblo has already been struggling. They were starting to get an uptick under Biden and the Infrastructure Act, but that's going to be gone and then some. So, um, yeah, and I don't know if the Republicans are going to be able to spin it this time. Especially if they keep going the way they're going, wanting to play fascist and, go to MacArthur Park and, line up with their horses for their TikTok videos and all this other spectrum crap they're doing. I just, I don't, it's interesting. Like you see people like Joe Rogan who are starting to say, I didn't sign up for this. And I'm kind of like mixed on that, like part of me wants to say like, oh, people, it's like, dude, come on, man. You're like, hey, Joe Rogan knew exactly what was going to happen, you know. Um, He's just trying to appeal to an increasingly right-wing audience because that's where his audience has been going. It's the same thing with Bill Maher, right? And Bill Maher knows who his audience is. So does Joe Rogan, you know? Um, yeah. Yeah, Viv said the small clinics will close, and when they drive to a further clinic, it'll be more crowded, and when you're bleeding internally or broke bone, waiting isn't just about being patient. Yeah, it's not, you know? And it's also for, everyday, other stuff, right? Everyday other things like inoculations, which RFK is doing his best to do that. Um, checkups, wellness check, all that stuff, right? You know, and then also, so now you're not going to get doctors to get in rural areas and everything else because a lot of that's covered through Medicaid and Medicare. You know, so no, but like it's easy to say with Joe Rogan, like it's like what's interesting about that, right? And here's the thing with the Joe Rogan thing. Like personally, like I care less what happens to the guy. I think he's a sellout. He's like peddling fascism, but he has an audience that he's reaching. And if he's saying this, it's not because he's brave. What he's seeing from his people, and they're telling him is like, dude, people are pissed about Trump. You need to say something about this stuff, man. Like, your audience isn't happy about this. So I think you need to come out and start moving towards this. That's what it is. It has nothing to do like it's not Joe Rogan saying I think that like I'm telling you now as someone who's worked in digital, as someone who works in entertainment, everything is curated. They have meetings about it. There's production meetings. They got the analytics. They know what their people are saying. They've run it. They run that through all that, and it's his production staff's like, yeah, dude, you might like because they got their demographics. They're like, oh, it's young men, it's this, and blah blah blah. That's why he had Trump on because somebody said to him, yeah, man, your audience doesn't like Kamala. You should probably have Trump on. You know, um, that'd probably be good because most of your audience is young men. Young men seem to be swinging this way. So, he's like, okay. So he had Trump on. But the problem is now the stink of that is now Joe Rogan's. I mean, this is 5 months later that this is happening. So keep that in mind for context, right? Normally, a president doesn't drop this far, this fast until second, maybe third year of their term if they're having a disastrous term, not in 5 months. So that's the thing you got to keep in mind about Joe Rogan is he is absolutely doing this. It is absolutely self-serving. And everything he does is self-serving, right? Wants to keep his Spotify contract. And in order to do that, he's got to keep his numbers up. In order to do that, he's got to give his audience some entertainment that they need to think about, but also that they want to hear, right? So if he comes out one day and suddenly goes like, you know, further to the left, even if it's the truth and maybe even what he might agree with, he's going to lose a lot of his audience. So the fact that he's coming out now, oh, this isn't what I voted for, da 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 da, that's where his audience is going. And that's a hopeful sign. It really is because that's Joe is not, he's not MAGA. That's Joe Rogan's audience. There are MAGA that listen to him, but his core audience is not MAGA. It's right on, it's adjacent to that, right? And that goes all the way, like think of it like, spectrum, of where his audience is at. So that spectrum that's closer to MAGA is saying, we didn't vote for this. That's a positive sign for our side. Yeah. And that also shows that Trump's power base and his hold on that is not as strong as everyone likes to portray. He's weaker than, everyone's, that all these people that are so fearful of him. He doesn't have that power, that stranglehold on it. You know. So, Dana Dubois just joined. Isn't that interesting? 200% tariffs. Should I? So here's the thing. Do I want to put Dana in? Like, I need to put her on the hot seat just for a little bit. I think so. I want to see if Dana wants to come in. Do you want to come in? Like, I think let's invite Dana. Let's see what's happening. You know. Because I have some questions for the lovely Dana Dubois of Gen XC. There she is. She's putting on the makeup.
Yep.
Okay, I knew it.
Here I am.
Your critics were right.
About what?
That you women on Substack just use your feminine wiles.
Our thirst traps.
Yes.
Yeah.
That you're. What did he say? What did he say about you? Not corrupt. What was degenerates?
We're degenerates. Yeah. All the women he can't believe the women on this website. That guy. Right? And he was just really upset that I had a story about my boobs, which, by the way, was a story about me expressing my anxiety when I scheduled a mammogram. I mean, there was a picture of my chest in it, but in a t-shirt.
But it was a t-shirt, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that the next story I published was about my actually at the time, a tween and a teenage child going to visit my dad in the nursing home and trying to explain gender neopronouns to him and how that didn't work with a, dementia patient. And he was just like, "You doxed your family right after you posted about your boobs." And I was like, "Sir, that's not what dox means." Like, posting one photo with a memoir piece is not doxing. Use the right verb.
So catch me up on this. Did this guy? So for those of you who don't know, apparently, was this in a DM or did the guy write an article about it?
No, this was a whole article.
A whole article.
Yeah. So last night,
yeah,
tell you a story that I was just minding my own business, and I got a DM from Michelle Tahoe, who's a wonderful writer. Sorry, I'm also making a frozen lasagna for my kids because he could just say I'm also a degenerate parent that I am home from work now, and I'm like, Trader Joe's lasagna seems like a good idea tonight.
Why not?
Why not? So I've got
it's funny. My sister was texting me when I was having interruptions before, and she's like, "I want a calzone. You want one?" I'm like, I do, but I also don't want to stop my live. So I was like, let me go ahead and open my laptop and text her back.
Yeah. That's so funny. Calzone, that sounds delicious. I don't have a frozen calzone though. And this is like a giant family size one, but hopefully she's hungry. It's so cute. She has a summer job, just started yesterday, and she's like a student teacher at a school for 4 weeks. And just to get up at like 6 a.m. to get there. And so she's like passed out. When I came home from work, she was like lying with the pets, just like,
that's funny.
Don't talk to me. I'm so tired. Let me sit this way so I'm not all super backlit. So the story was Michelle sent me a message, and it was a link to a story with a title called, I keep forgetting the word too, degenerates. Like, it was like women are degenerates too. And I was like driving or out on the go. And I was like, oh yeah, that guy sounds like a dick, just because of the title. And then I got home and clicked it, and I was like, oh my God, he's writing about me. And other women, a bunch of other women, but the story's from a month ago. He didn't link anything. He just grabbed screenshots of like the titles, but it's this whole like, people think that men are the sexual deviants, but it's women. And look what these women have written. And it's just him taking screenshots and posting them of titles of articles. And on mine, he said such range because I wrote about the family things, and he accused me of doxing my kids and then said I had all this range. And I was like, I have range and depth. I contain multitudes. Amazingly, women can write about their sexuality, which I wasn't even. I was writing about mammograms, but they can write about sexuality and about their kids or their family memoir, and they can be moms and also sexual beings. It's weird that we women can contain multitudes, sir. But one of the other women he called out in the story, he was like, "This is my very favorite one." And he's like, by a publication called The Vagenda, and he was all offended by it. And it was about like the headline was something about like menopause cream, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, The Vagenda is written by Dr. Jen Gunter, New York Times best-selling author. Like she calls herself like the gynecologist of Twitter. Her whole goal is women's public health.
Right.
Social media. Like, she's one of my heroes. She's on Savage Love all the time. She's so sharp. And I went and found this story, and it was all about how these companies are releasing these like menopause treatment products with no FDA oversight. And it was
Of
warning women,
course.
don't buy this stuff.
Right.
Look for these sorts of things because they're claiming these things that have no basis in reality. And I'm like, this is your idea of like women being like sexed up deviants? Like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, that is the red pill. That is
oh,
the red pill community. That is the
totally
man,
is.
the manosphere. Is that your first contact with the manosphere? You know,
No. So, I mean, certainly not in my life, but I'm in this. I'm going to move again because the light is. I'm not used to being live at this hour, and the light coming in is all backlighting me weird. So let me come over
yeah.
to my usual little podcasting spot where I won't make you like seasick as I'm bopping around. And the light won't be crazy. I'll put it on the stand. No, I haven't been on Substack that long. First, there was this guy, Frederic Poag. Boy, he was just bugging me all the time. I'm teasing.
I that guy, I'm telling you.
That guy. Oh,
I
it's still
know.
not great here.
He lost his mind over a packet drawer today. Did you see that?
Over
Yeah.
what?
Over a packet drawer. You know, it's like they were changing my
Oh,
packet. They're changing my packet drawer, man.
the
You
light is
know,
still weird here, but at least I'll be still. And so the story that he was making fun of me for is called "Hello, I Have Amazing Boobs." I originally published it on Medium a couple of years ago, and I have published. I don't write that much on Substack because I'm too busy podcasting, but I've published over 100 memoir pieces on Medium. I like to think some of them are insightful and like it took like ripping my heart out of my chest through the keys to write these pieces, right?
yeah.
But Hello, I Have Amazing Boobs, which I pounded out in about 30 minutes as just a like, I'm stressed out about mammograms. I'm going to write this story like exponentially more read than anything I've ever written,
Of
of course.
course.
And for a long time, if you Googled amazing boobs, I was the top search result. Disappointing young me and my 50-something-year-old boobs and a story about mammogram anxiety. Number one
Hey,
SEO win. So on Medium, people well, on Medium you have to be paying to comment. So it got a ton of traffic, but not too much in the way of negative comments. I posted it to Substack a couple months ago when I was new because I was like, well, this will probably get a bunch of subscribers, which it did. And again, exponentially more traffic than anything else I've ever written on
yeah.
Substack. But that was the first time I crossed to the other side of Substack. And there were angry men on the red pill side sharing it and being like, I feel so sorry for this woman's children. They were noticing that those two stories came in a row also. And I was like, I did write them back sometimes. And I was like, you really, I mean, maybe you feel sorry for my kids, but not for this. Like, my kids fear you. Like, I've raised them well. You are the concern for my kids, not this story. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It's good.
oh, sorry, just, yeah, I had some limited compared to what other women have dealt with, limited exposure with like the dark side of Substack. But it was never anything that got real creepy. Yeah, like, not that it wasn't, they were creeps, but it wasn't, I didn't feel unsafe. They weren't threatening to dox me, nothing like that. It was just
Right.
way better than a lot of women have had. Um, yeah, I mean, I've had Facebook posts where I've commented on things that were public that have gone far worse than this did. So it was not that bad. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was it was a funny thing to read last night and be like, this was from a month ago, and I had no idea he'd even written it. And so I, every day I run a podcast with Lawrence, who's been out sick the last 2 days, so that's been tough. I mean, I can talk, so it's fine, but I miss him. And I was like, we had a guest today. It was Brendan Elrich. He was great. We were prepared to talk about Gen X gay anthems. And I was like, Brandon, I'm gonna pull you in after a few minutes because I got some things to say first. And so I wasn't about to write back on this guy's story, which did
Yeah.
have like 60 comments, I think, yesterday, universally agreeing with him. Yeah, these women, what are these women doing? And some of them were from other women. I was like, girl, sit down. Sit down.
If they're even real people, God only knows. Like
Who
they're bots
knows?
or fake profiles, or who knows.
Right, but I did. I very calmly was like, "Here's my retort." I defined docs for him because he was using it incorrectly, and kind of said what I had to say. And then when I said the most important part at the end, I took off my hoodie and I was wearing like a little nighty thing with like, you saw the video I posted and
Yeah,
I
I was just
pointed the
like,
camera
what?
down and was like, "Here, I want to make sure you're paying attention, sir." Um, as I said, like these boobs are not problem what's causing the problem with our world. I was like, over 100 people in Texas are dead because we pulled funding. Like,
Right.
nothing will convince me that almost all of that could have been avoided if we hadn't pulled whatever NOAA funding and whatever jobs Doge eliminated. Like, I Googled, and 240 people or so were killed by hurricanes in all of 2024. This storm still has over 160 missing, presumed dead people. It's
Mhm.
gonna beat that number, and it wasn't a hurricane. Like, this river has flooded before. They've rejected they've tried to put systems in place before and didn't pursue it because didn't end up happening because of funding. Like, that's a problem.
Mhm.
My not really home state, but where I grew up, state, Florida, like, has a fucking concentration camp about half an hour from where I grew up. And when the first big storm comes through there, those people are all going to drown too, because they're in cages that are already showing that they flood during like a Tuesday thunderstorm in Florida. You
Yeah.
know, I was like, please focus on something important if you're going to write hate pieces. My boobs are not your problem, sir. None of these women are your problem.
My boobs
Also,
are not your problem, sir.
right, I would bet that this man is probably young enough to be my son. I bet
Probably.
this is some like 20-year-old kid getting all on his hate speech. And I'm like, sir, this is embarrassing. Like, calm down. You know nothing of, you know, menopausal women who don't give fucks. Isn't that the thing that is getting all the media attention right now? That one TikToker.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. The thing is, with guys like this, and my buddy who's watching, we've talked about this where
We're gonna swipe here.
um
That didn't help.
because you look at the manosphere, like any kind of knowledge that's sort of come by sort of easy, right? Where
Right.
it's just imprinted on you, and you just regurgitate it. It really just kind of falls apart with any kind of like pushback whatsoever, right?
Right.
And so these young guys who are just repeating these like talking points, as soon as they actually run into a live woman that has even just a modicum of intelligence, it falls apart.
Right.
And so they don't know how to react, right? Because it's you know, it's like, I'll give you like, for this one,
Yeah.
women are more degenerate sexually than men. We won't get into what a degenerate sexual act means.
Right.
I'm assuming it's Protestant, missionary style sex.
Who knows?
Anything outside of that is considered degeneracy, right?
For the purpose of conception.
But here's me as a straight white man saying
Yes.
back to this gentleman, okay, then why are women's boobs so sexualized more than they are for their biological purpose, which is feeding babies or whatever? Why who sexualizes women's boobs to the point that they're considered degeneracy?
Who
Is
does
it other
that?
women? Is it
I mean,
or is it
sometimes, but no.
sometimes? But what part of the culture does that,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so, oh, yeah, your entire point falls apart like that.
Yes.
So your premise is completely flawed,
Yes.
right? You know,
It
and
is.
and you can go down the list with these folks, right? You can like over and over, but they won't accept it because, like, as I was talking about at the start of the show, a lot of these people, this is akin to religious mania. It's not. It's basically they don't like women for one reason or another, whether it's trauma or whatever. And so they want to put this pseudoscience in here with it,
Right.
right? To say, oh, here's this woman who's supposed to be a mother, and how dare she show her breasts in a shirt? Okay, like, you know, but the thing is like my thing is, what's the whole point of saying, like, what's your point with this? You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's like there is no point. It's just it's just being a provocateur. It's just
I
getting
think.
people riled up. That's it. That's all it is. It's like
Yeah.
Andy Coulter saying we should have killed more Indians.
Oh my God, what a monster. I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw it because I was listening to you while I was taking a walk until my internet conked out and I heard you say that. So I had to Google, what the fuck did she say now?
And it was literally just it was like an academic conference or something, right?
Jesus Christ.
That's all
And
it
it's
was.
like,
It was just a Native
yeah,
American woman on a panel, right? That's all it
she did
was.
know.
It was a Native American woman on a panel about something, right? I'm not even sure what it was. And Ann Coulter's like, like, oh, let me go ahead and say this. And my buddy, you know, to give him credit because he's watching, it's like he said, "Huh,
Betty.
uh, somebody must have a book coming out."
Right? Yeah,
Right?
she's like, I'm desperately trying to remain relevant. I
That's
used to
it.
be agent provocateur number one, and now like everyone's flown past her because reality has become so like there used to be a sense of propriety, right?
Yep.
From that side of the aisle, and now it's just absolutely not. And so Ann Coulter's just like yawn. So she's trying to get some sort of
Yeah,
some air.
she used to be the snotty conservative white woman, and now there's
Right.
plenty of them that go even further. Right?
So many of them. Yes.
Yeah, you got Marjorie
Hungry.
Taylor Greene and
Yeah.
well, Laura Loomer is just taking the cake, right? Like she's
The I'm still not over the alligator lives matter. Alligator lives matter comment. Now 65,000 of them will have meals, and there are like 65,000 Latino people,
65 million.
or 65 million. Sorry.
No, I know what you mean. I know
Yeah,
what you
you
mean.
know where I was going. Sorry. Let's see here. Remove tray from box. Place on baking sheet in center rack. Really, I'm supposed to show you this. Just
Yeah,
I'm taking the plastic off. I'm not cooking it with the plastic wrap on it.
you gotta leave the plastic on. You gotta leave because it puts in the heat.
Beans. I'm gonna. Yeah. All right.
You poke the holes in the plastic.
Yeah. I'm venting the corners. It just seems weird to stick plastic in an oven, but we're all full of fucking microplastics now. What's the difference? What's the difference? Well,
Well,
I
yeah.
rarely make this sort of stuff, so let's do it. Yeah, Laura Loomer, uh, a fucking monster. They're monsters. I'm in an inarticulate rage ball about it. Of like, how do you talk like that about people? 65 million dinners, like
Because we've come to
inarticulate.
accept that in our society, right?
Yeah,
We come to it like you have enough people that are like, haha, it's funny and blah 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 until
Right. They're selling fucking merch. Fucked Up Friday. So for those of you who don't know, I host a, a podcast called The Daily Whatever. Publication is called Gen XC, so Daily Whatever, Gen X. The Daily Whatever every Friday is Fucked Up Friday. And we bring a guest on and we all talk about the most fucked up news of the week. I know you want a treat. Hold on, here's something that's good for the week though. Look at that little face.
look at that guy.
Look at that little dog.
Look at that little guy.
She's like, I need a treat right now. I don't know why you're talking and not putting a treat in my mouth right now. So let me open the treat bag. So Fucked Up Friday, every week we come and like you can't talk about like whatever the total top story is like, oh, we really need to agree on a term for what we're gonna call the BBB. I refuse to call it the big beautiful bill because it's just a
Well, I'm calling it the big beautiful. I'm calling it the big beautiful murder bill.
yeah.
So that it's the murder bill. That's my. I'm going to keep saying that because that's absolutely what it's going to do. People are going to die from the big beautiful murder bill.
Undoubtedly. And so that was like the top, fucked up story, obviously. And so we all ended up talking a bit about that, but kind of different angles. There are so many stories already for this week, and it's only Tuesday. Wait, it's Tuesday, right? Yeah, it's fucking Tuesday. And I already have like a list of horrors. And a lot of them are stemming around this story from Texas that's just, if this had happened when Biden was still president and this level of, injury, death, destruction happened under Democratic leadership in a red state, like they'd be after his fucking head, right?
The corporate media would have put it under a microscope.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm calling it a murder bill is because they know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If this was a court of law, it's like you acted with gross negligence.
Yeah.
There's intent. You know what's going to happen. It's murder. It's not like, oh, we didn't know. It's your job to know. And two, you have all the committees, you have all the data. You know what this is going to do. You know what closing those clinics are going to do. You know what those cuts to NOAA is going to do. You know what the cuts to the National Weather Service are going to do. It is a murder bill because it's deliberate.
And my parents still live in South Florida. My child wants to go to a college that's in the Southeast near the ocean. And I'm like, those parents didn't think like, I'm always looking around corners and I think that's a very Gen X attribute of like, okay, something's going to fall apart. What's it going to be? Let's try to plan for this. And right now there's so many corners. Um, it's amazing to me more people aren't freaking out about this. Like those parents thought they were just sending their girls to camp.
Yeah.
And apparently it was a very posh, like future wife of a senator in Texas sort of camp, like very elite. I was reading an article about that anyways, I think in the New York Times, I can't remember, but about how it's this was a camp of the very wealthy and at least part of the population that went there. So where is the call to root cause this? Like even if you pull politics out of it, like a devastating accident, let's just say accident happened, the very first thing like of course, like triage, try to save who's alive, try to recover the remains, identify all, get aid where it needs to be. That has to be first. But concurrent with that, we can do more than one thing at a time. How did this happen? Where were the failures? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Like that's just basic business or government best practice, right? Like something catastrophic happened. We would have I'm not going to call it what we call it at work because I won't out where I work, but there's like a whole process you go through where something breaks.
Yeah.
that in order to not repeat it, like what was the cause of this error? What happened? And it's like a really intensive deep dive that you have to jump in and do all the things. And I'm like, and the media is part of the like engine that should be driving that, right? Of and
Mhm.
researching it too, but like, hey, and I've seen little blips of it, like, hey, some people in Texas are saying maybe this happened, but like this should be outrage because I, I will not entertain that that was anything other than neglect by the current administration.
Oh, 100%. And it's show they do not care about. I mean, the crazy thing
Like, this is
is
not a bug, I guess.
you have we had this through COVID, right? Hopefully I didn't hopefully nothing's dying yet. Am I
Right.
dying? No, okay. Yeah, no. So we had them through COVID, and people said, let's give Trump another chance. Let's do it.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that again. The thing is,
Yeah.
you could say, oh well, the camp's built on a floodplain, but
Yeah.
not to the degree that that was gonna happen. And the thing is, Helene should have been the wake up call, right?
Yeah.
If there were any, because what happened now, where that hit in East Tennessee, a lot of the um, images you saw, one of the bridge being swept away. I knew where that bridge was outside of Greenville.
Really.
Like the people that were on the rooftops in Irwin, Tennessee. There was a diner just down the road. I used to go eat there when I
Mhm.
lived in East Tennessee. I knew
So that was
exactly
real
where that
personal.
area.
Yeah.
I knew where it was. I organized there for Obama back in 2012. I
Good for
went
you.
to school at ETSU in that area,
I
right?
went to Vandy. Have we ever talked about this?
I don't know if I don't think we ever talked about it,
Yeah,
but
I've lived in Nashville for a couple years.
oh,
It's
okay. So
fun.
yeah. Well, the thing is, like, Tennessee's like a finger, so I'm like in the
Yeah,
cuticle. You were like 6 hours away from me by car.
yeah.
You know,
Was it that far? 6 hours?
6 hours. It takes about
Okay.
11 to drive across the whole state. If you stand
Okay.
Tennessee up, you're going to go all the way to Michigan. You know,
Yeah,
so
it's long.
oh yeah, and but the thing about it is, you had all these dams, right,
Yeah,
that failed one right after another, and it was too much for it to handle. And
yeah,
so the thing is, we're having more intense storms. We're having more of these things happen.
right. Why,
And instead
Frederic?
of,
Why are we having more intense storms, do you think?
well, it's God's will, he's just like,
Probably.
you know. And but that's it is we're not we don't want to like that's the thing I really don't understand like about this because there's absolutely money in this. There's a capitalistic solution for these things, right?
Yeah,
It's like it's really just subsidies, and I mean, a lot of it's just like, oh, the oil industry has their hooks in it and everything else. You can go blah blah, but it's like that's what's crazy to me is like Elon Musk is suddenly he's not supporting the EV mandate. The one truthful thing Trump said is, "Bro, I was never about the EV mandate." He wasn't, Elon. He wasn't.
right.
Like he despises your business model in Tesla, fool. Like, what did you think Trump was going to do? The
You
one
called
time
it.
Trump told the
Yeah.
truth. He's like, "Man, I was never about the EV mandate." I was like, he's being truthful."
Yeah.
like, like,
When I first discovered your work, when I first joined Substack a few months back, I remember listening to you be like, Elon, that dude's gonna ditch you fucking hard. You're going down. And boy, I was like, yeah, I agree with you, but I didn't think it would happen necessarily as quickly as it happened.
because Elon's an idiot because he's just so egocentric,
Yeah.
egocentric. And the thing is, I've worked with people and I've been around people that are like, you know, the billionaire drug with ketamine. Man, it makes you stupid.
Excuse me.
Ketamine really, like, especially heavy ketamine use makes
Yeah.
you dumb, and Elon is just like, that's I think part of it's how he speaks now and everything else, where
Yeah.
he's not there, you know.
Right. But aren't we all just dying like Elon? Like, he has humiliated you. He has relegated you over here. He's threatening to deport you. Like, come with the goods. You know he's got it. He's hinting at all these things he knows. And I'm like, did he steal the election? This is the thing that I almost speak out on every Fucked Up Friday, and I just haven't yet because has me so fucked up. There's a Substack. This Will Stand, I think it's called. It might be
Yeah.
wrong in the name. Do you follow that one? And
No.
it's all about, or at least all the stories I see about it are like, there's absolutely no way statistically that the last election was not rigged. This is a person who's never told the truth. And that night, that kind of went through your head, right? Like, could we really have lost all 7 swing states like that? Was it really that close? But of course, we were all in the pit of despair. We all believe in democracy and fairness of elections. And we were like, okay, peaceable passing to the winner. That's just how this goes. Because we don't fight like idiots like they did on J6. But this person's premise is like, nope, absolutely statistically improbable to the point of impossible that the outcome that happened.
Mhm.
And I know there's been like Newsweek wrote about it. There's been like calls for Pam Bondi to investigate that are not like not like some tinfoil hat wearing Substacker just being like, dude, they fixed the election. Like there seems to be a little grit behind it. And that fucks me up really hard. But I'm like, does Elon know? Does Elon, because he had all of the tech giants behind him. It does seem entirely plausible.
I mean, here's the thing. If it's rigged, I think it's made, because again, I don't know if it's necessarily Elon or
Getting a lot
it's
of hearts for this.
right. I don't know if it's necessarily Elon or if it's Republican state party apparatus or because
Elon would have known about it because that dude Trump can't keep his
well, and here's
shut.
the other thing. Here's the other thing too that we got
Yeah.
that Democrats often miss, right?
Okay.
When it comes to this stuff. Voter suppression is vote rigging.
True. Of course. Of course. Yeah.
And we often and 21 states passed a slew of voter suppression laws
Right.
before this election, right? So
Yeah.
that's I mean, beyond like to me is like Democrats had this, I think the arrogance there was like, oh, well, Trump is so horrible, we're gonna outvote voter suppression.
Yeah.
No, you're not. That's why they had the Voting Rights Act before the Supreme Court gutted it, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't get. If there was one failing taken from the Biden administration, it's not getting the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed. That should have been all hands on deck. That's when you twist the thumbs of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. But the problem is you've got some Democrats that benefit, corporatist Democrats benefit from the gerrymandering. They benefit from, you saw this in Virginia, right? When, Democrats got back in power, they had a chance to basically end the gerrymandering map, and said, well, this is kind of favoring us now, so we're not going to do it. It's like, no, and before, like, the reason I bring this up is like, if we get back into power, that has to be all hands on it. 2 things. One, you got to open democracy up, guarantee voting rights, end voter suppression, gerrymandering, and 2, hold these fools accountable and responsible.
Yeah.
Trump might be dead by that time, you know. So we got to hold everybody that enabled them to do it. Pam Bondi, Russell Voigt, especially Stephen Miller, right?
Yeah. That guy.
Like I always I don't remember who I was. Somebody was like saying, "Oh, we got no, it was Ogre, the opinionated Ogre," and I was like, "I want to be charitable. I want to put Stephen Miller in Supermax, you know." And then we have a camera in his cell, and every once in a while, when somebody thinks about doing what he did, it's like, "Let me show you something. Come here, just come here. Take a look at that camera. That's Stephen Miller." Anyway, Stephen Miller got my phone. He got my phone.
He
But
did.
You say,
This is what happens
take
when
a
you
look.
insult Stephen Miller.
Like, that's Stephen Miller, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Stephen Miller. Now, you were saying about privatizing an army and ICE and whatnot. You know,
Fuck. Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. And I just thought of another thing on my fucked up Friday hit list that I want to run by you
yeah.
because this is freaking the fuck out of me. Okay. So we're locking up, the brown people, essentially, the immigrants, the illegals, whatever nasty name they're using
Yep.
in these concentration camps. Let's not mince words. We're pulling Medicaid from how many, 10, 20 million people? I don't know. I've seen different numbers.
Hmm.
And I think you wrote about it. It was either
Yep.
you or Ogre. And I also saw a couple of news clips um, about how um, my takeaway from it was, well, if you work in the fields, since to get your Medicaid, you're going to have to go work in the fields. Otherwise, you're not going to get your health care.
The
I'm
exit, like,
simplifying this, but that was what they were saying was like, well, with 20 million people coming off Medicaid and all these folks, there won't be any shortage of people to work. It
mhm.
was it was a whole like Arbeit macht frei. I think that's how you say it. I don't speak German. I've just seen the signs over the concentration camps. Work makes you free. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think what they're so
work
it's a
means.
yeah, it's a combination of that, right? So
Yeah,
because I think it's either 13th or 14th, right? Unreasonable. Basically, I think it might be 13th. The thing about the 13th, that was the one that ended slavery, chattel slavery,
right.
right, in the U.S. But the thing they left open for that was prison, right?
Yes.
So prison is not considered quote slavery,
Yeah.
right?
Who do you think put out those California? You know who put out those California
Of
fires?
course. So
Oh,
the thing
listen,
is,
I'm going to be
so
doing a chore here while we're talking because
yeah, yeah, no worries.
dishwasher
So
is sitting right here and needs to be emptied.
right, so the thing is, like, what what they're going to do is one, even though it's a civil offense, being an undocumented immigrant, right,
Right.
is not a criminal offense.
No,
Okay, it's not a felony, but the Trump administration and all the crazy right wingers are treating them as criminals.
they sure
So
are.
you just gave let's follow the logic here, right? You just
Yep.
gave ICE more money than FBI, ATF, DOJ,
Right.
Bureau of Prisons combined, right? All
Isn't
of
it
them
more
combined.
funded than most foreign armies? That's what I heard.
They have more money than the army pre-war Ukraine Russia. Okay, so
Yeah.
for their
Right.
military, right? So they had more money than that. Now that's for the purposes of building these camps and rounding these folks up, right? And they've shown they don't care, right? Of whether what your status is either, right?
Nope.
Because once you go in, because there's no due process, there's damn sure almost no way of getting you out. The same thing happened to black folks in the Jim Crow South, right?
Yeah.
Um, they that's with the chain gangs and everything else, right? You get thrown in there for something superfluous. So what they're going to, and I think Trump had some kind of word for it, some phrase where they called it debt servicing or whatever. So I think it's like one, you have that. Two, I think they're going to bring back. And my buddy's watching this. We talked about this. Is they're going to bring back debt prisons,
Yeah.
right?
I have been hearing about this.
Oh, I think
And
they will. I think
think
that's
about,
next. You
yeah, think
know,
about the
the,
college loan debt that
yeah,
millennials on down
they're
are in.
they're already starting that, right?
Yep.
They're there's like, oh well, they're defaulted, so we're gonna collect on it, right? Now, what happens if the government can't collect on it, or these corporations come and say, hey, all these folks that are going on Uber Eats and like buying food and then they're not paying on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want so it's like, oh, okay, well, you can work that debt off if you go work in the fields.
Right.
But because you're not a criminal, right? And you're working off this debt, you got to pay for your housing, you got to pay for your food. It's the company town. That's that model,
Right.
right?
I don't like where this is. Where I don't like this story.
Yeah.
I'd like it. I'd like to quit watching this movie and go watch like a feel good rom com. I don't like this one, Frederic. Can we change
Oh
the
yeah.
channel?
No. This is the thing that if there's something that I'm kind of keeping an eye on that I'm kind of most terrified about, it's this. Because you're going to have a lot of people in very disadvantaged places that are going to fall into this.
Yeah,
Nick P says that sounds like slavery. Oh, it absolutely is slavery. They're just going to call it something else so they can get around the 13th Amendment,
they can get
13th,
around the
14th.
S word.
Yeah, they're not going to call it slavery. You're not technically going to own these people,
No,
right?
hold on one second, Frederic. Have so much fun. Yep. Are you guys going to collect raspberries? If you do, we bring some back. Okay, have fun, sweetie. I love you. Go
You're
ahead.
terrible. You're a terrible mother. Yeah.
I am a terrible. You know what? Well, you know what I did just then? I flashed my boobs at her. I was like, "Get out of the house!" And so she's crying now. She's traumatized. She's like, "My mother has boobs," and she's
And then
running to go
she went, "Oh
cry.
my God, I too have boobs.
Yeah,
The curse of breasts."
she's running to go cry at her best friend's house because she's traumatized by my parenting skills. Let it be known for all of
But
Substack to hear,
the Supreme Court has already set this up for Trump, right?
right?
They've already set this up. They've already set the table for him to do this. And so now what will we go there? Here's the real thing, right? And this is the
Yeah.
tricky part.
Okay, I'm listening.
Here's my my cynic ray of hope, right?
Your cynic ray of hope. Okay,
Right.
lay it on
Here's
me.
my cynic ray of hope.
Okay,
What these people are bad at is organization
organizing.
and logistics. They're terrible at it, right? So
Yeah,
is that money, all this money going to ICE, are they actually going to do that? Because here's the thing, like what a lot of people forget in history, and this is gonna
yeah,
sound really horrible, the Nazis did do things for people, right?
yeah.
They built the Autobahn, they put people to work, they brought them out. Germany's one of the most horrible depressions they were having, right? You know, so the Trump administration starting out not doing anything for anybody. They're making life worse for Americans, right? Across the board. And so the other thing is, are they going to take that money and actually put it to building the fascist state, right? Which
Right. They're just
requires
going to
work.
funnel it into their pocket.
There you go, right? That's my cynical hopeful is like, or is it just going to disappear? And they go, well, we had some horses in MacArthur Park and we took a video of it. It's
Oh my
like,
God.
so what, like, I don't know where that goes really for there, right? I don't know
Doesn't it
if,
go to all their rich buddies who own all the private prisons and yada, yada, yada?
yeah. And do they funnel that in their pocket where it's like, hey, did you build a prison? It's like, well, we got some boxes from Home Depot and kind of made like a little fort. How much did that cost? Like,
$20 billion.
yeah, it's like Mike Sever just posted out, look at Bannon and the wall. It's like, yeah, he went to jail for it, right? Because it was a scam, you know? And so that's part of like, that's why I haven't like completely freaked out over it. Cause I'm like, it seems like the Trump family is just robbing the American people blind. And in some ways, the big beautiful murder bill is also a grift bill. It's designed to filter public money, our tax dollars, to the rich.
Of
You know,
course.
and Trump's going to get a cut of all that, right? That's why he wanted to give all that money to ICE because his boy Stephen Miller's over it, and he's probably going to take at least a 20% cut. You know, so I mean,
Yeah, you're probably right.
but it could. But here's the problem, which
Okay.
I'll end on. It could be a yes and. You know,
To do all of that and also succeed at things.
yeah, they could do all that and be horrible too. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like we got the horribleness and we got the grift.
Oh my God. Hang on a second. The little one needs to go outside. So we're going to go out on my deck. One moment. My deck. That makes it sound like so fancy, doesn't it?
This is I'm seeing degeneracy. That's all I'm seeing.
Yeah. That's well, I am a woman on the internet.
Right. Which
The right
which is,
right boobs sometimes. Hold on. Okay. Now we're
I don't
outside.
get
It's a
many
beautiful night here in Seattle.
I don't get many red pill people anymore, you know.
Good.
So
Good. I don't get many either. This one, I mean, if Michelle hadn't happened upon it, I would have never known. It's been like a month. So for all I know, the red pills are writing about me every week and they're just not linking it. And that's the thing, like when I was where did my dog just go? Oh, there she is. When I was on the live, I shared the link in the chat, which disappears. Of course, and I really wish Substack would fix that so that you could see the chat when you watch the recap, because our chats on the Daily Whatever are the best. People are so animated and so funny, and it
they
also
are.
costs. But yeah, our community is like amazing. I love them all. But I didn't want to link it in the recap and leave it there for posterity because I don't want to send this guy clicks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's just rewarding him in the Substack system. We actually have the exact same number of followers, which I found annoying.
Oh, I would have gone at it. I would have gone at it. Like, I would just been you know, it's
Frederic,
different.
I'll give you his email or his username if you want to go find him and or I'll send you
No,
his
because
email.
I looked at him with his little Riders of Rohan freaking decal. I was like, bro, you don't even have the courage to put your freaking real face out in the world. You
Yep.
know, like these women are 20 times braver than you. You're like, you know, I was like, I remember one guy went at me, right? And
Yeah.
he had a picture of him, uh, you know, he thought he wanted to look like an operator. So he was at a firing range. You know, he had the cut off sleeve shirt and
Oh, you're
he had the
cutting out. Are you frozen?
no, you're cutting out, you know.
Yeah.
So now he had the cut off sleeve shirt and
Oh, so
he had
is me
the
because I'm outside my house.
yeah, he had the predator mask. Oh no, it was the Punisher mask, right? You know,
Oh god.
and he was he kept calling me like these guys always go after my weight, right? They always come after like that. And I was like,
Really?
yeah. Oh yeah. You know, they always say, oh, doughboy and this and that. And I'm like, listen, first of all, don't be intimidated by my size, youngin. And second of all, I have the courage
Hold
to
on.
at
I'm
least
gonna try something here to see if this
put my
makes my connection
face.
better or worse.
Well,
What
you
that should be
shouldn't you shouldn't be sitting outside. You know that
I know,
this.
but my dog's out here. So
Well, the thing is, women need to be in the house. It's
oh,
degeneracy.
I am
Yeah.
barefoot. I was in the kitchen. I am barefoot. I am definitely not pregnant. That's why he's so offended. I can't get pregnant anymore, at my age. So he's like, "You're
I
the
don't.
first."
No. Here's the thing. I let two women in my kitchen today, and I lost my packet drawer. That's
Right? Oh,
you
Kira,
know,
get away from there. Kira, come here. Here. Okay.
you know.
There's
It's like
something.
they're trying to say, "Oh, we're trying to help you." This you know, barbecue sauce is 5 years old. It's like it ain't hurting you. I got one drawer. Why are you coming after
Girl,
my drawer?
dude,
You know?
my housemate just moved out. I long story short, um, it has not gone well. I've talked about that a little on the Daily Whatever as well. They're finally out. They owe me a month and a half's worth of rent, and they're demanding their security deposit back, which I don't understand at all. It's a lot less than the rent they owe me. They also left a fridge full of rotting food that I emptied out on Saturday. So I spent like 3 hours on Saturday looking at expiration dates. I should just send you some photos of the entire pizzas that are like 5 months old. I don't even know how old they
You
are.
ain't
I
got
mean,
to. You ain't got to. I don't need to
yeah,
see
we
that.
do that. And so I was like, even stuff like their butter had expired. I'm like, how did you not poison yourself? Like all of this food is so old. So it might have been frustrating, but it's probably good that they got rid of the 5-year-old barbecue sauce because I don't want you to get sick. Lawrence has food poisoning. He's been out for 2 days.
That's the thing. I literally I usually toss them in the drawer and forget about them.
Yeah.
Like pretty much the only thing I use now is like a few basic condiments. A lot of I do seasonings, a lot of
Yeah.
seasonings and hot sauce. You know,
Yeah, I do
so
love hot sauce. I
yeah.
love you know what I love is the, what is it called? It's like crispy chili onions, like those, like Trader Joe's sells it. Here, I'll go show it to you. It's like my favorite condiment.
Are you talking about chili oil?
Yeah, it's like chili oil, but with like the crunchy onion bits in it.
Oh,
Do you know
okay,
what I'm
yeah,
talking about?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my god, it's like crack. It's so good on everything. I love that stuff. Also, I went below 10% a while ago on my phone, so if I suddenly disappear, it is not personal. I would never just drop intentionally, like peace
No,
out.
no, that's good.
Not
Like
that degenerate. I would
we're
say a
we're
proper goodbye.
we're getting to a good wrap place. Was good taco, good talk. Thank you for jumping in on
Is what
short notice. You know,
no notice. You just clicked the button.
well, you came in. I was like, oh, let's pull her in.
Okay.
You know,
Okay,
and so
feisty. Recording in a little nighty thing with her boobs out. You know, I had to respond in kind. I do have to go back to that story though, because all the other women he shouted out, they're not linked, but I want to go find them and follow them because they all sounded hilarious. One of them was like, I'm a cock-sucking feminist. That was her title that he captured, and it was like, I'm a feminist, I'm a wife, I'm a this, and I'm a this, and I love to suck a good dick. And
wow,
the
she really said that? That's crazy. Like a feminist said that. Like,
I can't.
do you have her address or phone number? I mean, just
I'll, I'll I'll see where she lives. I think she's
Okay. I mean,
horrified that she sucks her husband's dick even, like, and
oh,
I was
okay.
just
Yeah.
like, "This monster," and I'm like, "This is funny." He was all like, "If a man wrote this, you know, blah." I'm like, "Don't be so obtuse."
Well, actually, if a man wrote that, it would be Lawrence. So, yeah.
Right? It would be
Yeah.
Lord.
So,
I
yeah.
miss him. I really hope he's back for our podcast tomorrow because I miss him. He was here in Seattle all week. Got to spend a lot of time together, and then I think he got caught something. I don't even think it's
Yeah.
food poisoning. It's been 2 days. Kira, don't do that. Come here.
So, for those of you who don't know what she's talking about, Gen Xy. So that's Gen X with a Y at the end of it. They do a daily whatever podcast, and they have effed up Fridays. It's good stuff. Lawrence Winterman is the co-host. They have on fabulous co-host. I'm on it sometimes. So definitely check out their they do a lot of good written stuff. They do a lot of it's one of the underrated Substacks on Substack. 100%.
Now I'm
So
having. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. We are new, so we're growing
yes,
slowly but surely. So thank you for the support. That means so much. And
100%.
Lawrence and
Thank
I
you
have
for
been best friends since the 4th grade. So
yeah.
the whole thing floats on the fact that what's that song from Frozen? We finish each other's sandwiches. That's what I was gonna say. Like that's what we do all day, except a lot looter usually, or a lot more politically charged. Um, so,
No,
although we're
I
having a
love
week
it.
talking about music this week, we lightened it up. And tomorrow, Walter Ryan is our guest, and we're going to be talking about karaoke, which I love because he saw I posted a story about 4th of July karaoke songs, and he was
No,
like, "We should do a podcast about karaoke," and I was like, "We totally should." We have not spoken since, so I don't know what we're talking about karaoke. And I do have a little rocker box, so I might bring it on and sing poorly at 7 in the morning my time.
dig it.
Um, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for
Are we
jumping
signing
on. You
are we
know,
signing off for, like, the whole thing, or just side dropping?
we're signing off. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate y'all. And as always, keep the faith and defend
Defend
democracy.
democracy.
I'll see y'all later. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.